Hello YouTubians. Booking a wedding photographer for your wedding. I thought I would give you a little bit of advice. Having been a wedding photographer, done a lot of weddings, easily up in the hundreds, probably up in the thousands, realistically over a very long time. I thought I would give you a little bit of sort of friendly advice on what to look for and how to go about it. Incidentally, this is not me looking for work. I am not taking bookings. So let's get that out of the way first. I only do weddings for friends and family now. So I'm trying to retire, trying desperately. Okay, so what do we want? What do we want to do to find a wedding photographer? Well, the best way, in all honesty, is recommendations. You know, have you been to a wedding lately where they had a photographer, or your friends got married, cousins, relatives, anybody? Ask around, ask your friends and family. That's the best way to find a good photographer. Is, you know, someone who's had a photographer at a wedding, he's done a cracking job, they got a nice album and he was nice to work with. Remember, you're going to be spending a large part of the day with this person. So you want someone that you can talk to and that's easygoing, relaxed, you know, cheerful, not some grumpy old git. Possibly like me, although I'm not actually a grumpy old git. If you don't know anybody who's had a wedding done recently or anything like that, and you can't really, you know, find anyone like that, have a look, you know, in sort of the local paper or whatever. See if you can find anyone who has a studio. Now, yes, I know you can find people on Facebook and things like that, but you're better off finding someone with a studio, and preferably a studio that's been there for years. If someone has a high street studio and they've been working there for the last 5 years or 10 years, the chances of them going bust Monday when you go to pick up your photos is pretty slim. If on the other hand you get some bloke off Facebook, well, A, you don't know what you're getting, and B, well, what happens if he's not there Monday when you go to get your photos? And there are con men out there, there are charlatans out there, there are people say, oh, I'll do your wedding for 250 quid, you're never going to get the pictures sometimes. Some are good, don't get me wrong, some are good. But there's an awful lot of con men out there as well. Don't go strictly on price alone. There are really good cheap photographers and there are really crap expensive photographers. Don't be fooled by price, right? That's not necessarily something you want to do. And the other thing you do not want to do not ask Uncle Bert, because he's got a good camera. My mother has a cracking set of spanners, but she's not a Formula One mechanic. You know, think about that. Or, you know, Cyril down the pub, he does some cracking bird photos. Are you going to be flying in your wedding, or are you going to be sitting in a dark, dingy room? Because Cyril might be all right, but the chances are he probably won't have a clue about shooting a wedding. And it's a lot more than just taking pictures. Trust me, there's a lot more. Weddings are more about, as well as photography, you have to be man management, there's organising the things, keeping track of the time. You do a bit of everything at a wedding. It's just not a simple thing. So if you can find a nice high street studio, go along and see the person there. Ask to see a wedding album, a full album. Don't just have a look at, you know, a dozen different photos from different weddings. Pretty much anybody can get one good photo from a wedding. Getting a whole good wedding album, that's where your skill comes in. You know, if you can get like 60 pictures in an album that all look really good, well, yeah, your chances are the guy's pretty good. If he's only got like one decent picture from that wedding, then the rest could be crap. You know, there's your warning signs, isn't it? Don't do what these magazines tell you. Some of the bridal magazines will say, oh, there's a list of questions to ask your wedding photographer, you know. What camera do you shoot with? And he's going to say the Canon 24XR3 or whatever. Are you going to be any the wiser when he says that? No is the short answer. You could try asking him things like, what do you plan on doing if it's pouring with rain, or if it's snowing or something like that, depending on what time of year it is. He may or may not have a sensible answer to that, because some places you still have somewhere indoors you can shoot with flash, you can set up a mini studio or whatever. Other places, and you screwed, there's nothing inside to shoot. You know, you might have a staircase somewhere which is probably crap with waiters walking back and forth across it or something. It's luck of the draw. And the other thing you do not want to do is do not go and take along half a dozen pictures from Brad and Angelina's wedding and say, I want my wedding photos to look like this, governor. Because the first thing he's going to say is, well, are you getting married in a 15th century castle, and are you going to look like Brad and Angelina when you get married? No, you're not, are you? So why would you expect those photos to look like that if you don't look like that? The other snag is the people who took Brad and Angelina's photos probably had a crew of about 5 or 6 people and 3 or 4 grand's worth of lighting equipment there. The guy you're going to buy for 500 quid or 1,000 quid in the high street probably isn't going to have a team of 5. You know, be realistic in your expectations. If you're spending 70 grand on a wedding, don't go for the lowest bidder on the wedding photography and try and get some bloke to do it for 90 quid or something. You know, be sensible about it. Spend a bit of time with the guy that you think might be the wedding photographer you want or you like the pictures of. See if you get along, see if you kind of gel, because as I say, you're going to be spending the day with this person, you know. And you want someone you can talk to, you want someone who, you know, who's going to back off when you want a bit of peace, or, you know, who's going to know. And ideally, someone who's going to know where the venues are and what the venues are like. That's another way you can find a photographer, is you could try asking the venues. That may be a good strategy, but it may also be a risky strategy. Some wedding venues will do a deal with a local photographer. The photographer will give them 50 quid or 100 quid for every recommendation they get. So you may be getting a recommendation of someone who's paying for that recommendation. Not necessarily the best photographer, but it swings and roundabouts. The chances are a decent wedding venue is not going to recommend a crap photographer, because it's going to come back on them, obviously. Because, you know, when you get your bad pictures, you're going to go back and you're going to say, hey, you recommended this bloke, he's rubbish. You know, what's going on here then? They go, oh. You know, they don't want to be tarred with that brush. And that's another tip too. If you're going to book a wedding and you want your pictures to look like Brad and Angelina, don't get married in a working men's club shed. You know, that's how good do you think that's going to look in the photos? There's a limit to what a photographer can do. He's a photographer. He photographs what's in front of the camera. He's not a scene manufacturer. He's not a plastic surgeon. He's going to get what's in front of the camera. We had a guy once, years ago, who was completely bald, slightly less hair than I've got. And he then grumbled about the photos and said, well, I haven't got any hair in the photos. And the other photographer who was there said, well, you haven't got any hair, mate. He said, yeah, but you can put it on in Photoshop, can't you? And the short answer is, well, yes, you can, but it's going to be an expensive process to do that to 600 photos. You know, people are not going to do that for nothing. And besides which, that's not what you actually look like. So, you know, I mean, I can look in a mirror, I got a face. I am not going to expect myself to look like Brad Pitt in a photograph. Let's be honest, I'm not. Even with the best will in the world, I look more like Oliver Reed in the photograph. And that's Oliver Reed after he died. But, you know, yeah, this is not a face you want to see close up in 4K, is it? Which is why I don't shoot in 4K. It's bad enough in this. Anyway, so there's just a little bit of sort of a few hints and tips for finding a photographer. As I say, recommendation is your best bet. Thanks for watching.